Hello, sir. Good. Actually,
Guten Tag, mein Herr.
You. Nice to see you. Do you do
Yes.
this? You kind of come back, you know.
Oh yeah, it's good.
Yeah. This
Good to
for
see
this
you.
wonderful episode of The Prisoner, an episode that, you know, when you think about how classic this show is, this is the first episode that jumps to mind, isn't it? Come on now.
We have these discussions, and I've heard it with Gary from Nerderotic before, and I've heard it from you before. We say The Prisoner, greatest television show ever made, and I'm right up there, right up until the best, and then I have to say probably the second, because I got to say Next Generation is the best television show ever made, because purely of the consistency of the number of episodes versus quality of episodes. And if this nailed 17 episodes, you'd be like, ooh, but this episode is just like, oh, what? How did they get everything wrong in this one? Because there's no commentary. It's got great production. It's got great direction.
It's a one-note joke strung out for 50 minutes.
Yeah. That's the problem. That is the problem. It's the same thing over and over and over, and it doesn't, even though you change the location, it doesn't get any more interesting or deep, or especially when you've been so wrapped up in this crazy chaotic world, and it's suddenly comedy,
and it's just insufferable comedy. It's not even. It's the only thing that I love about this episode is the exploding cricket ball. I mean, it's when I was in working on the Lord of the Rings extended edition special features, I was in New Zealand for an extended period of time, and I got obsessed with cricket because, you know, what do we know about cricket in America? And one of the girls that worked on the film started taking me to cricket matches, and then one day, some of the people from Weta Digital invited me. They're like, "Hey, you want to come play cricket?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do." And it was such a great day. I mean, beautiful day in Wellington, and it was very interesting because in America and in California, if you throw like a dinner party, like in LA, if you're like, I'm going to throw a dinner party for 10 people, what you do is you know that 3 of those people are going to flake.
Okay.
And then the 4th is just not going to show up and not call, and they'll call you like a week later going, "Oh, I totally forgot, bruh." And so when you have a dinner party for 10 people, it's really going to be 6 people.
Okay.
And you just have to plan for that. But if you're in New Zealand, if anybody ever goes to New Zealand, the Kiwis, man, if they're like, okay, our game's going to start at 10, everyone's at 10, everyone's there at 10, and you play the one long inning, and then they say we're going to have lunch. And then all of a sudden, when the inning is over, people, all of a sudden there's grills everywhere, and there's fine fish and meats, and everybody's grilling it up. And then you play your second inning after lunch. I mean, it reminded me, I'm like, man, I want to go back to New Zealand as I was watching this episode. I want to go play cricket. I want to go eat fresh fish that was just grilled up on a Sunday morning. I don't know why I'm thinking about that, but I mean, I just loved seeing a cricket pitch and I just love seeing cricket in this episode. That's my favorite thing about this episode, cricket.
Well, cricket has a very special place in my heart. When I was at school, when I was 14 years old, we were playing rugby. It was the wintertime, we were playing rugby. And I got pinned on a tackle. He pinned us and drove us into the ground, and it broke my shoulder. Very nasty. So it broke my shoulder. So it was such a nasty break. The best is yet to come, though. It was a nasty break, and the doctor said, I know you're only young, I'd probably stop playing rugby now. And I couldn't do that because I loved all of it, everything, you know. So I said, no, I can't. So he healed up, but he said, you know, try and take up something different. So in the summertime, I was kind of like invited by one of my friends to go down to the local cricket club. And I went down to the local cricket club, and it was such a wonderful community, such a great atmosphere, and very welcoming. And
Yeah.
It was so bizarre to see the competitive nature versus how it just gets turned off when it's halftime and turned off at the end of the match. But it's so kind of bitter and vitriol during the process. It's something called sledging. And I was in, they scorer didn't turn up. So I ended up scoring for them. They showed me how, and I ended up scoring, and they were very impressed with my scorebook. They said, "Oh, this is great. This is so very neat, very neat, great." They gave me £10, which I thought was amazing.
Amazing.
So I started to try and play, learn how to play, and then I was invited to go into the lowest team they had possible, and I was picked for my first match. I'm a young boy, I'm 14. I'm excited to hell. My mum buys me a pair of cricket batting pads as I go on my way. I get there. They say, "Oh, someone else has turned up that we could do with. Can you go 12th man?" And I was like, "Okay." And inside, I'm like, heartbroken. Yeah. So I end up scoring again that match, but I get my chance. I get my chance a week or two later, and I don't do well, and I don't do well for a couple of matches. I'm batting so at the bottom sort of thing, but my mate's teaching me how to play, and I'm getting a little bit better. And then one match, I don't know, I just hit a few runs, and it becomes suddenly becomes a little bit fun. So I take it a bit more seriously, and then I'm playing when I'm 15, and I'm learning it, and I suddenly move from bottom to just creeping up a couple.
Right.
And then I'm 16 and I'm opening the batting by 16.
Nice.
I've got my technique. I've been, I practice. They brought some Australian players over for the first team, for the big team. I ended up playing with a couple of Australian national cricketers, as well as some others. They are dirty boys. And when I get to 17 years old, I'm still playing rugby, and we're playing sevens in the summertime, and I get grotted around the neck as I'm sprinting, and I hit the ground on my right shoulder.
Oh no.
And this is summertime, so the ground is rock solid.
Yeah.
And my shoulder explodes. Absolutely explodes. So I go to hospital. I have to have it reconstructed. This shoulder, I'm in a body cast all down the arm, a pin going from here to here.
Wow.
Like that, 6 weeks while the arm is the shoulder's resetting after being rebuilt. The doctor's just like, "You gotta stop playing rugby." And I'm like, I'll think about it. But it gets better, and I'm back onto the cricket, and then I'm hitting 50s when I'm getting better. And I'm hitting my first 50s and stuff like that. And oh my god, it's the feeling of doing that, the feeling of getting your first 50. A couple of weeks later, I follow up with a 50 not out. In actual fact, when I hit 50, I was asked to retire for the match. They were like, "You've hit a 50, come in. We'll get another batsman in." So I pull out, and they get a little kid on to give a little kid a chance, which is fine by me. So I play cricket up until 21 years old, and then somehow, some way, just stopped playing. I went off to uni, and I never played again. I played in the nets at the university and never never did anything again. Crazy.
I've only ever played cricket that one time. I got a few hits though. Didn't do so bad. Although it's very difficult, having grown up playing American baseball, to pick a cricket bat up and not want to hold it up.
Oh, there is
it's tough.
There is something so special. Because you don't do that. You don't hold your bat up for a 4. You don't hold your bat up for a 6. You hold your bat up for your 50, 100, 150, 200. So hitting that first 50, and the thing was, I'm counting in my head. I'm counting in my head. It's on the scoreboard. We've got this beautiful scoreboard now, but it's on the scoreboard, but they're a little bit behind. So I'm on 46, and I go wallop this 4. Like, absolute twat this 4. Nearly a 6, not quite. It's a 4. And I just like trot back to my place. I start looking at the scoreboard, waiting for the 50 go up. They don't put the 50 up. And it's like the end of the over, so they change overs. So the umpire comes to me, and they start bowling at the other side, and then he hits a single or something, and then we run a 2 or something, and we get to the other end, and the umpire's just like, "Aren't you on 50?" I was like, I don't know, trying to be all modest. I don't know. The scoreboard says I'm on 40, 46. And then the umpire just goes, Scoreboard! Can you check? Can you check what the second batsman's on, please? and they just get this like little
love that
hand,
umpire.
Yeah, it's miles away. So you just get this little hand like come through the scoreboard, because you can't see them when they're in the thing. So you just get this hand come out, and then they roll on 50, and then 50's rolled on. So I'm not even batting when I get to put my freaking bat up. As the applause come in for hitting a 50, I'm at the other end, for goodness sake. So anyway, I thought it was funny. Liquor Jim says, I can tell as he's speaking English, but this combination of words makes no sense.
I know you talk sports on channels like this, people get all skitsy. They're like, what?
You speak handball, American handball, people might understand a little bit of that.
Have you ever seen the Indian film Lagan? It's like a 3-hour. You should watch it. It's a movie about cricket.
I hope you were going to say, have you ever seen the Indian film The Party with Peter Sellers?
No, Lagan, and it's like a 3-hour long epic about. Well, you just got to watch it, but it's delightful.
I watched a great Borderline series. There was a wonderful Borderline series that we made, which had the Australian US border. Do you know? Are you aware of the Borderline series?
No.
When it used to. Cricket used to be a very gentlemanly-ish sport. And when the Brits went over to Australia, and think sometime in the 1920s, could have been 30s, they had this thing called the Borderline series where kind of we were getting twatted around by the Australians. And so we decided to Bodyline series. Did I say Borderline? I'm thinking of Madonna.
Yeah,
Bodyline series.
First album. That's early Madonna. You were thinking?
Yeah, it's early with. Yeah.
I'm burning up for her love still.
I wish that was back in those days. Anyway, no, nowadays she let me fucking.
She was your lucky star ass. Come on.
Oh, she was. Well, she was like a prayer.
That's the second album.
That's the second album. Yeah. We're going on a bit.
Oh no, that's not. I was thinking Like a Virgin, Like a Prayer is even later.
Oh yeah. That's 86, 87, probably. Maybe even. So the Bodyline series was where the English suddenly decided, instead of bowling, kind of like classic bowling, we're going to start bowling it into the batsman. So we were going to get aggressive and bowl it into the actual batsman.
Wow.
So that's where you started getting bouncers. That's when you started getting targeted bowling that were actually going towards actual bodies of the batsman instead of,
wow,
on the left side or on the right side, depending on where you're batting, and that's what created the Bodyline series. Yeah, we ended up winning the series with this ultra aggressive bowling, which was very controversial. And I believe that the captain of the England team never played for England again after the series, because it was deemed so controversial. But it became, it's now regular part and parcel of cricket. Anyway, The Prisoner.
Well, I mean, I just have to say, this movie opens with an exploding cricket ball, killing. I mean, the inciting incident is a man who's on the job, who's undercover, looking for this rocket that this maniacal Bond villain that thinks he's Napoleon is going to launch and destroy London. He gets killed. He's an agent that gets murdered at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah, an old general. This whole thing is so silly, but there's references in this episode, though.
Yeah, I mean, it look, it even references. Well, there's a giant rocket in this episode, but it just, it's what's interesting is when you first start watching this episode, you're taking it seriously. Like you're taking it all in, and I think I've watched this episode in my life once or twice, maybe, but probably just once because I hated it. And
I have seen this episode many times.
yeah, there's a lot about it continuity wise, and in terms of its action scenes that are sloppy, and I understand why. I mean, I get all that, but when you're first watching it at the beginning, you don't know. So you're following it like a regular Prisoner episode, and when the cricket ball explodes, on one hand, well, that's kind of funny, but on the other hand, you're like, oh, that guy got totally killed, and then it cuts to the newspaper story when murdered. The guy is murdered, and
one
then,
short of his century.
yeah, and it's and then you meet number 6 in the city. And he's John Drake or whatever, it goes from there. And it just, I mean, I kind of I like seeing him in the city. I like he goes into a record store, and he as soon as they hand him the record.
Hold on. There is 2 massive references that you've missed. Number 1, the bowler, his real life name is John Drake.
Is John? Yes, there's yes, and he was not happy about a lot of things in real life about his name being used. Yes,
and secondly, when the general or whoever, marshal, whoever is batting first, he has a man on the sidelines who's watching things. That man is called Potter. And it's played by Christopher Benjamin. Christopher Benjamin in Danger Man played a character called Potter. So although they claim there is no connection between the two, he's essentially playing the exact same character that he did in Danger Man.
Yeah, well, and also I would say that you're basically watching a Danger Man episode you just haven't seen yet through the prism.
It wouldn't even be a good Danger Man.
Yeah, no. Well, if it was done, but I also want to say, like, I forgot to mention the thing about the bowler and John Drake, but I love my favorite thing about this episode is the close up of his face when he bowls, and they repeat it. It's so great. It's so great.
It's yes, it's pretty ridiculous. Right up in there. But close-up shots to try and give that illusion of pace, I suppose, and vigor that went into the actual bowl itself. They go to record store to kind of do the Mission Impossible thing.
Right. I mean, I love the fact that record. I guess having listening stations. I didn't have that when I was a kid. I went to the record stores all the time, but they didn't have listening stations like they had in this. And I would have loved to have done that when I was a kid and listened to albums I wanted to hear before I bought them.
Yeah, I mean, we did used to have them.
Yeah,
like more major places, but we did used to have these listening booths where
Europeans are so much more refined than we Americans are.
Yeah. So you could kind of try. I mean, there was even one in Checkmate. Right.
Yes, there was.
Where he's going through the records of Louisiana.
And I do love, I mean, very Mission Impossible. He puts on the record and he's clearly interacting with somebody in real time.
Yes. Well, we think it's a recording, and then he says something, and then the recording goes, "What'd you say?"
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's that. I did actually chuckle at that, but that movie's pretty decent actually. But it's just, oh man, this episode, dude. It's just like you can chuckle at the beginning because these are the new things. And then it just repeats itself over and over again. So
over and over again.
The new things don't become fun because you're putting into. So after sort of like the pub, to me, the episode just dies. Because the pub scene's pretty clever.
I love the pub scene because I just love the pub scene because I want to be Patrick McGowan and line up all those different shots and just be like the guy doing the shots. I mean, I love that he does that. He on a dime, he knows what he has to do.
Yeah, he
And
needs to flush that system out.
but I agree with you. I mean, this episode, it dies. It's so repetitive, and it just goes on and on and on. And then they finally get to the back lot of, was that Pinewood, wherever, and it just gets really cheesy, and I mean,
because that fairground scene just kills you.
It
kills you.
Yeah, there's so much rear projection. And then they do it again. I mean, we've been on the roller coaster once. Oh, let's get on the roller coaster again.
Yeah.
And all of this stuff, the tunnel of love. I mean, it's just not. And the thing about it is it could have been really like if you wanted to do an Alice in Wonderland sort of a through the looking glass kind of a thing, and like this girl who really is the personification of death. It could have been really fascinating, but even when I started watching this when I was like 12, I'm like, this is annoying as AF. I mean, I just didn't. It's not clever, and it's not fun.
No, it's tedious. It's boring. You're watching the clock for it to end, which is never a good sign. The thing to me is when it's when the ending's revealed and he's reading the nursery rhyme to the kids,
because the kids in the village have been such a thing, been a staple of the series.
Exactly, yeah.
The kids of the village, they should make a spin-off show for like 12-year-olds for Nickelodeon. The kids of the village.
I just thought you've wasted such an incredible concept of children in the village.
I know.
And how would number 6 respond to them? And what if the kids were in on it?
Right.
What if the kids were in on it? What if a kid was number bloody 2? You could have the whole discussion about youth evolving, because of their environment type of business. So they could have had some really, a really interesting sort of idea to play with there. But we've never seen a child in the village before. This is the first time we've seen children in the village. It's the last time we ever see children in the village. And it's such a throwaway thing for something that is really, if you think about it, so important. So who are these children? Why are they here? Where are their parents? Are their parents still alive? Are they just holding them after they've dumped their parent? Well, there were so many different avenues of to go down with this, but
and not only that, so number 2's plan in this episode is to have number 6 apparently read bedtime stories to these kids, and in the telling of these bedtime stories, he's somehow going to reveal something. I mean, at least with like Living in Harmony, there's a virtual reality element where everybody thinks what's happening is actually happening, or in this. So why would number 6, he's reading from a book, and of course he seems to be embellishing and telling the story in his own way, because the pictures in the book do not adhere to, they're just, and so John Drake is making up this story based on the book itself.
Based off the images.
But so number 2 thinks that he's somehow going to slip. And while he's telling these kids a story, he's going to somehow
lava.
He's going to inject some insight into why it was he resigned, or what is about the information.
The whole idea is so hooky. And
it just makes me. It's like you wasted of 17 hours of this show. You do this, Basically, the Princess Bride did it better. I mean, this is the Princess Bride episode of The Prisoner. And what's interesting to me is the story itself. You think there are certain times when the girl who was death, what's her numbers? It looks like she's another number 8, like the kid from Living in Harmony.
Well, I didn't get a number, but she had a number.
But it could have been interesting in that it would have been really interesting if this story was number 6's interpretation of his experience in the village up till now, that he was trying to impart to the kids in a fairy tale sense. And I don't know if that's what they originally started out as, and that there could have been some meta commentary. I mean, the thing about children being relatively innocent, that they don't understand. I mean, what's the story that number 6 is trying to tell? And if he's trying to tell kids this story, this spy story about, there's a lot of violence and everything in this, but the story itself ultimately has no meaning.
Well, to me, one of the biggest problems is we've had episodes where we've had, in essence, John Drake.
Right.
Many Happy Returns, Chimes of Big Ben, Checkmate. These are all very kind of like John Drakey-esque episodes. So this is the worst John Drakey episode of the John Drakey episodes as well.
Yeah,
it doesn't even work as that, because we've had much better episodes where the prisoner has got out of the village. And they've told a much more compelling story, a much more interesting story, an involved story. And here we have a story which, yes, is a fairy tale, whereas the others were real. But we have this story where he's completely out of the village, and it's just one note.
Oh, and it could have been, what really would have been interesting is if this episode was the telling of the actual thing that caused number 6 to resign. And this entire episode in fairy tale form could have been the answer. Like number 2 is looking at, there's an issue of John Byrne's Superman in the 80s after Crisis on Infinite Earths, where an issue is about Lex Luthor creates this computer, and the computer does all of this calculation and figuring out who's Superman's real identity, who is he really, and the computer at the end of the issue spits out that Superman is Clark Kent.
Yeah.
And Lex Luthor says, that's ridiculous. Why would a human being, like a reporter, like a mild-mannered reporter like Clark Kent, how would Superman, who has all this power, hide as a meek, mild-mannered reporter? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And Luthor says, completely denies it, can't accept that fact. And it would have been really interesting to use this. And this, by the way, the idea for this episode came from David Tomblin, who directed Living in Harmony, and we talked about his incredible contributions to this series. And I can't help but wonder that maybe this was the episode in the form of a children's story that they could have provided some kind of an insight into why number 6 did in fact resign, and number 2 is actually watching this story unfold, albeit as a children's story, that provides the very answers that he's seeking, and yet doesn't recognize them because they're in the guise of this children's story.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's beautifully shot. It's well directed. It's well framed. Pace-wise, the pace works in terms of what they're trying to do to get from one place to another, but it's what they're doing in the places which kind of bores you. So everything's
so
kind
boring.
Like it has all the right ingredients, and then they've made a shit cake.
Well, because it's not really about anything other than she's trying to kill him, and that's all that's ever happening in this episode. There's nothing more you'd think that, maybe there's some subtext here, but there really isn't. And then a lot of the time it just is cheesy. You're watching this going, ugh, this just, I don't know. He's in a the what is it? What do you call them in England? The tractor or whatever, the road grader, the digger.
Well, he's certainly sort of like a digger. Yeah.
Yeah, he's in it, and she just keeps getting bigger and bigger weapons until she gets the RPG and takes out. It's like, okay, and then there's kind of a hokey explosion, and it's just not. And even the action scenes, there's no squibs. I mean, they whip out these huge machine guns, and there's barely any squibs on the walls that he's shooting at, and it's not good. It's not good.
Bulldozer, that's a
bulldozer. That's what it is. It's a bulldozer. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, that's the problem. I know it's a fairy tale. We all know it's a fairy tale, and the problem is the adventure wasn't fun.
No, and
The journey wasn't fun that you took us on.
no, and that's the thing. That's, I think, the real. And if it's a Bond riff, even when you get to the end and you finally meet the Doctor and his French, his Napoleonic army, it's interminable.
Yeah.
You know, it really is. And it's, I mean, I hate to say it, but Patrick McGoohan doesn't strike me as your family man who's like, I love kids. let me hang out with them.
He had kids, you know. But yeah, he comes across as very stern. Yeah. Type of guy. I don't know. It's a weird one. He didn't come across as much as anything in this one. He himself didn't exhibit any personality in this.
No.
And when you say the star of the show was the girl, and she didn't do anything.
No.
Apart from say, oh, I want to kill you. Oh, you're fun. Oh, I'm not going to kill you, but I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's all she kind of said. And I think she was the star of the show because she just looked so striking.
Yes.
You know,
I mean,
stunning woman, you know, beautiful figure, running around in mini skirts and all kinds of stuff. And
yeah, she looked like she was out of Danger Diabolic, the Mario Bava film with John Philip Law. You know, like she's wearing that cool white outfit and the scarves and all that. But again, and she drives a Jaguar, which is very diabolic. But it just wasn't. It wasn't fun for me, man.
No.
Am I asking for too much?
No, because you know, normally we can go into like the wheres and the what fors and the whys of stuff and discuss and concoct different ideas and throw different ideas at each other. And this one didn't have that because there wasn't any meaning in this. This wasn't about youth. This wasn't about education, the development of the mind. It wasn't about anything. It was literally a throwaway episode. And I think to myself, just imagine the scripts which we rejected. Surely there had to be one better than this.
Yeah. I don't know. One of the viewers here says, what if this, Bill Story says, what if this really was the reason why he resigned, but hidden in the story, he fell in love with an enemy agent, but had to kill her, so he quit the service, hidden in plain sight. I'd like to believe that's true, but the story is so uncompelling, I can't believe that it is.
You'd have to believe it, you know? I like the concept of that. I think it's an interesting concept, but you got to have a relationship develop and build between Six and the agent, which is A, difficult to do in such a short period of time, B, because McGoohan hates women. So that'd be even tougher. But yeah, it's when you're trying to tell it in the guise of a fairy tales, therefore, you know, death has no meaning, it's comedic, and chases are daft and stupid and disguised as a silly and buffoonery. There's nothing there to latch onto, unfortunately, to say, well, you know, this is one of the reasons he realized that for all the good that he did, it just ends in death and destruction and yada yada yada, and he couldn't continue the cycle, and maybe if he broke the cycle, then the opposition would do the same sort of thing. And you know, there was nothing there to latch onto for us to say, hey, bam bam bam. We were, before we even started this stream, we were talking about bowel movements and all kinds of other things, just as long as it had nothing to do with this episode.
Well, also what's interesting too is you would think the fact that it ultimately is revealed to be a children's story, that number 6 is trying to impart a lesson into the minds of these kids, like in a very Prisoner-esque way. You know, he's the way that they've tried to educate him. We had the general, we've had these crazy, whether it's mind control or the ideas of free will, that here number 6, for whatever reason, he's been put into a position to be an impression on, to make an impression on these kids. And it would have been really interesting to see if number 6 took this opportunity to tell them a story that in a very subversive way would bring those children around to his cause. So maybe they could grow up and help the next guy who finds himself in the village. But there wasn't even any of that. I mean, even the idea that it's a bedtime story becomes this just one note joke that has nothing, there's no substance there other than you're like, oh, how cute. And it's all meaningless.
It's just meaningless. When he goes to the tunnel system to get to the lighthouse, that's actually the set from Fallout.
Right. Yep.
So they use the set from Fallout for that. Just switch some stuff around in the main room. But the tunnel system is the same, and it goes into the room which is going to be used. And again, Kenneth Griffiths is going to be the judge.
Right.
Fallout. So he returns. Lexis Kenner returns as the kid in that episode as well, or it was like a number 147 or whatever it is that he turns out to be. So we get a lot of repeat of the cast, but the weird thing is Fallout is recorded about a year after Many Happy Returns.
Right.
So it's like, wow, these sets were just hovering around, not doing a lot while McGowan's desperately struggling to find a way to end this show. Yeah.
I mean, what is interesting, I think, and what's maddening, because we only have one more episode before we get into Once Upon a Time in Fallout.
The two-parter, yeah. Essentially, it's a two-parter because they link straight.
Yeah. But I mean, next week's episode's not a favorite of mine either.
Why? But this is rather interesting because I don't want to go too much into next week's episode because obviously we're going to discuss that next week.
Yeah.
But Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling is a better fairy tale than this.
Yes, it's way better. And I find it interesting though. Like, I know that they had to stretch the show out to 17 episodes, and that was not the plan. And I do appreciate the innovation that they're going for. But look, it's not like this episode is unambitious because it has many locations.
Yeah.
There's location shooting. There's a lot of outdoor work in this episode. I mean, they even go back to the same hill when McGowan escapes and finds the gypsy caravan or whatever. It's like the exact same hill which is fine. But there's a lot of squibs. There's explosions. There's a lot going on in this episode, so it wasn't cheap. It's not like normally a TV show would go and do a bottle episode and just shoot an entire episode on standing sets to save money. But this episode doesn't do that from a production standpoint. It's pretty ambitious. So I think when they were making this, they probably decided that we've got something really special here. Let's spend the money. It's certainly...
I think like Ant here puts... This episode is essentially a 60s spy story dubbed down for kids, which it kind of is, but this isn't a show for kids.
Right.
So really, your kids aren't really watching The Prisoner. Not a lot of them. I know we you sort of pick them up during, I would say, your mid-teens. You're a teenager, mid-teens, so you kind of past the kid phase, and you're getting into the interesting stuff. You're discovering sci-fi, and you're discovering all this kind of wonderful genres that are out there to be explored. Whereas it's a kid's story. It's for 6-year-olds. It's for So it's like this is who.
But I don't even think 6-year-olds would watch this. Because even 6-year-olds expect more from. I mean, when I was 6, I was watching Twilight Zone, The Outer Limits, and Star Trek. You wanted to watch this. If I was 6 and saw this, I would be annoyed.
I was definitely watching TOS at 6.
Yeah,
probably the Twilight Zone, the black and whites. I was watching The Invaders.
Yeah,
stuff like that. Every week, cerebral hemorrhage. So many cerebral hemorrhages, so little time.
Yeah.
So I get I get nothing from this episode. I get nothing. I don't enjoy it. I don't want to watch this episode again. I don't, because I don't get any desire out of it. I don't get any benefit from it. I don't get any pleasure from it. Whereas next week's, I think there's a lot to like about.
There's a lot more to like about next week.
Darling.
Yeah.
There's a little, there's little things which are revealed, and I think the casting was terrible for Six, his replacement. But but other than that, which is, it's not his fault. But other than that, I think it's actually quite an interesting episode that could have worked well with a better cast character.
Yes.
But Magoon's off filming Ice Station Zebra, so
yes.
That's why we got that episode. Otherwise, I think it would have been an episode where they, I don't know, they probably would have had him out of the village again, but with some sort of caveat that he has to return or whatever. Yeah, it's so tough to talk about this one, and it's.
Well, it's so funny because, as we've gone through the show, it's triggered such interesting discussions, and it really makes the viewer contemplate number 6's position. And you're always thinking to yourself, if I was, like, I've always believed that all of the great stories in movies and television are all, what if I was that person? So the audience is always asking themselves, if I was this person, would I make the same decisions they are making? And that's how you get like, you watch Jaws, for instance. Everybody identifies with Chief Brody. Like, I've never been a police chief, but he's like the every person character, and he's confronted with these situations, and you're always asking, and you're with him. You're with him the whole time, and you're like, well, I don't want to go after that shark, but I guess he's got to save his family. So I've always thought that the best movies always put the audience itself in the position of constantly asking yourself if you would do what the main character does. And if the main character of whatever it is, it could be like, I don't care if it's a woman character or a male protagonist, I want to always side with the main character. And as I follow along the story, I always am constantly asking myself, would I do that? Would I do that? And that's what keeps you going. And one of the things about The Prisoner is we are all Patrick McGoohan. If you love The Prisoner, you are, as the audience, you are number 6, and you are constantly with him and questioning, would I do that? And would I make this decision? And in this episode, I am not with him. Because I feel very distanced from him. And maybe it's because I'm annoyed by all of this. I'm like, what do you, and I think from that perspective, as an audience member, this episode loses me because I have no investment in what's going on at all. I just don't care.
Yeah, because McGoohan doesn't feel like 6.
Right.
Being a Danger Man fan as well, it doesn't even feel like Drake.
No.
So we have McGoohan in the position of like a half-assed Drake, and because he barely says a word, in the episode either, he barely says a word. There's no connection for me either to that character. There's nothing to hook me into that character other than
he doesn't even give his tormentor any good witty repartee to throw back in her face.
No,
because they never meet one another really. She's either taunting him over some radio device up until the end. So there's you don't even get a scene in the middle of the episode where they like meet and have a conversation, and it's all very distancing. And I'm just curious. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'll have to go pick up one of my books because I haven't read a lot of my books about The Prisoner in a long time, but to go back and read. I'd love to read about the rationale behind why they made this episode.
Yeah, I think I might myself, to be honest with you, because I'm always confused by it all. Like Living Daylights, for example. The beginning of the Living Daylights, when Bond purposely misses the shot on the cellist, realizes that she this is an assassin. You know, she doesn't know which end of the bloody rifle to hold. And then the man who's with Bond is like, you missed on purpose, and he comes across as very arsehole-ish, and you don't like him much, and he's his contact. And then halfway through the episode, they meet up in the fairground. Isn't that coincidental to what we're discussing today? Meet up in the fairground and have that little chat in the cafe or whatever it is, and he comes across as personable and likable. And then they do that because as soon as he goes, he gets killed by Mr. Schmidt spioning him.
Right.
So it gave you something, you're like, okay, this guy ain't so bad. You know, he's a career man, but he does care really, and you know, he does have the best interest of Bond at heart, and then goes out, bang, gets crushed by the door. And so you got some stakes, you got something to be like, oh, and so it gives Bond that extra drive. I don't find in this episode we ever have a drive to care,
right,
about Six Drake, whatever you want to say in this one. We don't have a reason to care or about anything. Well, the person I cared about most in the episode was Potter.
Yeah, I mean, I keep wanting the missile to get launched. I want the end of this episode to be him walking around a devastated London, having failed, you know, and then like London's destroyed, and you cut to him reading the story to the kids, and they're all crying.
Yeah,
and the lesson he's imparting to the kids is that sometimes you lose, kids. The universe is indifferent to your suffering. Everybody died. and I mean, that to me would have been like, okay. There you go.
I just wish I had something to be invested in with this episode to care about.
No, and you know, it's funny, as I've gone back and rewatched these episodes as we've been doing the show. I try and clear my head and watch everything, try and at least watch it for the first time, you know. And I will say this: the Blu-rays that I've been watching have just been a joy because they're so gorgeous. The remastering is so gorgeous, and even the rear projection stuff. There's a lot of ooh, is that new?
Yeah, discussing it tomorrow. Critical Drinker.
I love that. I've never met him or talked to him. Man, I love that guy. I love his reviews.
Well, I'll sort you out with him.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of his.
Get an Xbox and download Warzone.
I'm such a PlayStation guy, though. I just watched his video on Annihilation, and as much as I love Alex Garland, I can't disagree with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I try and watch these all with a fresh eye and come to them, and hopefully, as now I'm older than I've ever been watching these episodes, and I'm figuring maybe my life experience will give me some insight and bring me some new revelatory observations or something, but not this time.
Yeah. When I watched these first time when I was 15, you watch it on a very simplistic level. As you get older and you start to understand, you get more life experience. All those 22-year-olds on Twitter telling me to when you get some actual life experience and know what the hell you're talking about, you begin to see things. You begin, themes begin to become evident. I think when McGowan filmed The Prison, he was approximately 38 years of age when he started recording. So, there's decent life experience behind him there. And then, similar ages, a little bit older. You get a lot more out of it, especially when you've been existing in a society for so long and seen all different aspects of pretty much everything, that society has to offer. You have all this. And so, yes, you go back and you see, oh my goodness, this is about the individual. This is about somebody who's trying to, remain themselves within this societal system. And then you watch an episode like this and you're like, right, great, this is going to be brilliant. I'm going to see something. I'm going to find something. There's going to be some message, some nuance, which is going to be like, oh yeah, no.
Yeah, no.
No. Not a bit. Not nada.
I mean, it's interesting. I when I get to the end of this episode, we finally get to the lighthouse. Our main villain, the doctor, or number two, I would like to watch a whole episode about his rise to power. Like, how did he become the way he is? When did he become such a Napoleon fetishist? And recruiting his henchmen. He's like, okay, this is how you're gonna have to dress, and this is how it's gonna be.
Batman. That's when it turned into Batman.
Yeah. It absolutely. It had to have been influenced by that. There's things in this like the when they go into the sauna, and they stick the broom handle in the sauna door. That was in Thunderball. Like they and it's kind of goofy. Just
putting that bowl over his head as well. It would be a goldfish.
Yeah. It's funny, but though when I was watching this episode, when he goes into the pub, I turned to Elizabeth, my girlfriend, and I go, I miss pubs. I miss a proper Commonwealth pub, whether it's in New Zealand or Australia or especially England. I mean, I maybe one day I'm going to retire to your homeland and just open a pub. That
bars, but pubs, that's different.
Yeah, no, I know. I want a pub, a proper
Public.
lots of yes, a lot of wood, a lot of warm beer served at warm temperatures, like a Guinness, Kilkenny, the cream of Ireland, lots of different whiskeys. I would like to live the rest of my days doing that.
Well, I worked at pubs before.
Maybe having a comic book store too.
No, that's what I wanted, like a cafe that had like comics and video games. Yeah,
so John Schnapp always wanted to do that. He always wanted to go
down with a coffee, and they'd be like, you'd have the like console in a box, so you can't get to it, but you could like sit there and play while you drink your drinks and coffee, or went to another corner and read.
Yeah. And just get great fish and chips, great cod, whatever.
Oh yeah. Do some nice little food, nice little finger food behind the counter. Little scampi and fries, lemon peas.
So yeah, that would be ideal. Because I love the pub in this movie or this episode.
It's the best scene. The pub looks authentic. It looks great.
Yeah.
It's very clever. It's the cleverest thing in the whole episode.
And I love that you've just been poisoned.
Yeah, with the reveal. Yeah, the more he drinks, the more the message he reveals, and so it's you have just been poisoned.
No, it's good.
But like see, this is the annoyance, because the barman goes, "Oh, do you want another one, sir?" And he's like, "One of those is quite enough." And it's just like, where was that from the rest of the episode?
Right, I know.
It's like this nice little 7-minute block, 10-minute block at the beginning, and then 35 minutes of wah wah. Same joke, same situation, repeated worse and worse and worse and worse until you got to Batman. Until you got to an episode of Batman at the end, and not a very good episode of Batman either. Because this Batman was funny and campy. It's always meant to be funny and campy. And
although I do love that miniature explosion at the end when they blow up the lighthouse. It's like, I don't know if Derek Meddings did it or somebody in his model shop did it. It was a proper Jerry Anderson miniature explosion.
Oh yeah. It's good production though. I said it's good production, well produced episode.
Yeah.
Water, love it. Getting off the rum today. Clearing the old grey matter. Yeah, so that was just so frustrating because the bar was great. Bar scene was great. Getting all the little drinks. Oh, you'll throw up if you keep doing that. That's the point, darling.
Yeah. It's like, in case you didn't understand what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
I love the rapid fire. One of the things I love about that is that the cure all, like he says it so quickly and in such precise order. I'm like, he's been here before. And I wonder who came up with this exact precise formula of liquors to shoot to make sure that you get expel the poison from your body.
Empty that stomach quick before it's got time to get into the bloodstream.
Yeah.
And he's just like, he's just lined them all up perfectly. He's just like touching them into place. Then it's like, time to puke.
Yeah.
Time to puke. Yeah. That was. Then it should have just gone dum 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 dum. They'd be like, all right, okay, short episode, but it's all right. But yeah, we get the whole chasing around and the fun fair business. That's where we get the cameo from Alexis Canner, who doesn't get credited in this episode, but he was on the. I don't think he was fastened to the roller coaster either. I think he was just like loose in it, doing what he was doing, with the photography and stuff. And
like I mean, suddenly they're doing. And again, another thing that I really liked about that is there is a lot of things that it has in it. Like, I love Antonio. I'm a huge Michelangelo Antonioni fan, the director, and he directed, of course, Blow Up, which David Hemmings is this fashion photographer, and it's very much the latter, the swinging 60s London, and her outfit is very much, it's very mod, it is very Mario Bava, Danger Diabolic, and I'm like, there's a little blow up thrown in here for good measure, and it's everything that's going on. Yeah, baby, if Austin Powers, or somebody pointed out that when he's chasing her, they drive through the parking lot of like a store or something, that there's an actual police call box, there, if you can look at it. And I'm like, they could have had a Doctor Who tie-in or something.
Well, yeah, I mean, how Doctor Who would have been.
I mean, because this episode could really use more Who in it.
This is the old Who, not modern Who. But actually,
no.
You've posed an interesting question, or you posed an interesting thought. Is another reason why this episode's so flat now is because we've had Austin Powers, and because we've had this done very well indeed. And so this comes across now as very lowbrow, cheap sort of attempted spy ripoff, and just doesn't work because the gags don't land.
I think maybe, but I tend to think no, because look, I've been watching for my own show. We've been reviewing the James Bond movies, and we did Goldfinger and we did On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and all of that stuff still works. If anything, it works better now because the mod fashions and the production, the design and all that, it looks even better now. Whether it's that mid-century architecture, like the Charles Eames stuff, or like it especially because On Her Majesty's Secret Service is a very mod. It's probably the modest of all the Bond films, because of the design. George Lazenby's outfits, like he's going golfing and he's wearing this orange shirt and he's got this great like beige jacket and pants on. He just looks badass. And this episode, because they do the facial hair McGowan wears, it's all like a throwback. I know it's almost like the way people look, the fact that they're playing cricket. The only thing that makes it modern is like her outfit and her Jaguar. Everything else kind of feels, you see a little bit of London, but I wish it was more. If this episode had more Austin Powers in it, I wouldn't dislike it so much. Even then it doesn't go far enough. And you wind up in the ugly backlot of, is it Pinewood? Or
it would have to be, or
I mean, they don't even
Studios or something.
Yeah, it's in like the worst part of the backlot. It's like they were probably shooting some big movie at the time, so they could only use that one street.
Well, is this the street that was used in A, B, and C, but in daytime?
I think it is. Yeah. I think this is, it's not even, I think about the UFO episode where I think it's Time Lash, where they're on the back they're on the back streets of the studio, and it's because Shadow is below a movie studio, and even that has far more visually interesting stuff going on than this does. That the back lot or whatever where they are, it's just so it doesn't look good.
And so it was Bournemouth Studios.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Yeah, because the aesthetic just didn't. You had the clock tower, you had the almost like the mansion in the background, and then it sort of had a western feel and then they made them into a butcher, baker, and candlestick maker for the poem, for the rhyme.
Right. Right.
So none of it aesthetically worked. None of it matched. It was all mismatch, bizarre nonsense. Why would he even go? I mean, never mind. Why would you even go into the butchers to start with anyway? Why? Why
yeah.
Out the street? Because all he did is go to the come out again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when it was getting really forced, and that's the part of the episode where I start to die. I just any fucks I could give have gone, and it's like that's it for the rest of the episode. I'm out. I'm sort of just zombified. Come on, clock watching. Come on, finish.
Yeah, I mean, even now, as we're struggling to discuss something interesting in this episode, because I can usually find something that something I could latch onto, but in this particular episode, not so much,
No, which is a shame. Because we have dealt with. This is the 14th episode that we're reviewing. Or discussing, I should really say. We've dealt with 13, I would say doozies.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Just 13 absolute doozies. So it's not as if there's been any real. I think we last week when we said, I think probably the worst episode out of the 13 would score an 8.
Yes, yes.
That's the sort of high level of quality for all of this, and then this one just comes in and it doesn't feel part of The Prisoner. It doesn't feel attached to the show. That's the worst part to me. It feels so disconnected. It has such a similar ending to Living in Harmony in as much as, it's worth a try to try and, put him into a situation. And it with another sort of sidekick for number 2, as opposed to a battle of wits between 6 and 2, which are always the better ones. Or the sidekicks get manipulated by 6 or whatever it would be. And so this one just didn't feel as if it fits in the show.
No, and there's really one of the things about The Prisoner is it every episode, as it's dragging you along, at every moment of a Prisoner episode, I don't mean dragging like dragging slow, but as it's pulling you through its storylines, there's so many intellectual nuggets all over every episode to grab onto that make you think about, even if it's an exchange between two people or something. There's something. There's questions that are being posed to you as the audience all the time. And I think a lot of great television does that. You don't even know, but scene by scene by scene, every scene has something to say and is engaging you in some way. This is just mind-numbing. And it's not, like you said, it turns into this chase. You don't even know really why. You kind of understand, okay, they're looking for the doctor's missile. It's going to blow up London or whatever. And I'm like, even that I don't care about, because you don't. This is not the right journey to get there. He's not following any clues. He's just, this girl's trying to kill him over and over and over and over and over again. Well, what does all of this mean, and why is she trying to kill him? Just to get rid of him because he's on the case now. So it doesn't even work as a riff on a spy story.
No, because the villain knows who the spies are immediately, all the time. I can't rationalize this episode, because there's nothing there to really rationalize it. It's completely.
I wonder. Let's see if I got my Alex Cox.
Yeah, it's got a couple of nice little bits. here and there, but other than that, it's just so disconnected.
Alex Cox, the director of Repo Man, favorite movie of mine, he wrote this book on The Prisoner. And decoding The Prisoner, I'm gonna see what he has to say about this particular girl, the girl who was death. Let's see if he has anything interesting, any insights. Yeah. The Girl Who Was Death, episode 16. By the way, according to this book, what have we learned? Okay, at the end of in his book, here's the paragraph that he's written. This is all at the end. He goes, the question is what have we learned? Little. We've learned little. This is a fairy story invented by the prisoner to entertain the village children and annoy number two. In the first draft script, Schnips and his crew are all dressed as Adolf Hitler. That's interesting. And greet each other with Nazi salutes. This makes a certain sense since Hitler did indeed strike London with V-1 and V-2 rockets designed for him by his rocket ace, Werner von Braun. That's about it. Despite its fantasy structure, The Girl Who Was Death develops the prisoner narrative in two specific ways. The villain is a rocketeer, and the second episode in which number 6 picks up a gun. As this is a children's story devised by number 6, he decides Schnepp's profession for reasons which will become clearer in the next episode or chapter. That's interesting. And he decides within the parameters of the fairy tale to embrace the temptation of firearms. Interesting. Well, that's about it. There you go.
Picked up a gun.
That's all he comes up with. Thank you, Alex Cox.
There's some cracking thoughts there. I'm gonna put this out. I'm gonna go through some super chats, and we'll put it out there because let's see if anyone else can make anything of this. Shall we say?
Yeah.
Gary Walker with a £1 fiddy phallic unicorn. Thank you, Gary. And Andrew Hoyle with a £5 super chat says, "What out, chaps? I'm just taking a break from world building with the Unreal Engine to drop a few doubloons towards the Christmas rum fund." Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, we are. I have destroyed this bottle of Mount Gay, but it's so good.
I need alcohol. I don't have any.
It's just so beautiful. So much taste. Mr. Tickle Trunk with a 5 Canadian. The pair of legs who was death was all I could think about at the start until we saw her face. I'll be in my bunk. Well, that was the thing. I mean, obviously she was very attractive. Beautiful little sex kitten physique.
Oh, yeah.
On her. And we're getting Potter looking at her legs. There's lots of camera angles at her legs, sort of sexualizing her.
Oh, yeah.
As this sort of sex kitten, this dangerous femme fatale. And that was kind of not a problem, but that was kind of indicative of the episode. It was all showing, all style and no substance.
Yeah.
Which is so strange for a prisoner one. Lots of style, great style with dress, dress, costumes, etc. But the actual substance, the episode, distinctly lacking. Sci-Fi Freak with a 5. US Chitty Chitty Bang Bang did better, in my humble opinion.
That's a yes.
Yeah. Because it's not even a good fairy tale, really, is it? It's he's rigging guns to backfire and kill the people that are shooting them. He's rigging Nazi grenades. They are German grenades, by the way. He's rigging German grenades to have the explosives in the hilt. So when you throw the top part, Then it blows back on yourself, killing you, blowing you the kingdom come. When he's got the gun, he doesn't shoot anyone.
No, he shoots at stuff.
He shoots at stuff, but in Fallout, that's a different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not even a good fairy tale.
No.
Tad586 with £25 super chat. Thank you, sir. Just finished watching the intro stream and got Arrival queued up for tonight. I feel as if I need a palate cleanser after this. I feel like I need to watch like Arrival again or something like that, or Many Happy Returns,
or The Princess Bride,
or The Princess Bride, or Rocky.
Right.
But yeah, I do feel like a palate cleanser. I think Arrival is just a beaut for you. Should be caught up by next stream. Great job, gents. Just saying, you know. Grandpappy Fisk with a $2 super chat. 2 is the president of the assembly in Fallout. Yeah, he's the judge.
The judge
in Fallout. Dem bones, gonna walk around. How are we gonna talk about that one? Andrew Matthews with a £5 super chat. On this day, to all my fellow vets, we remember them. Oh, God bless you, Andrew. Yes.
Yeah, it is Veterans Day here in the States too.
Yeah, we had Remembrance Sunday.
Yeah. My father, I was saying that on John Campy's show. My father actually, he was stationed in Alaska during World War II, but he flew on a plane once with Douglas MacArthur up to Alaska. Yeah. So it was amazing.
Amazing. J Morph, 1 with a $10 super chat. Hail, guys. Even though this episode was kind of pointless and leaves you feeling a little empty, it was better than anything coming out today, with the exception of Queen's Gambit, which was great.
Oh, I loved it so much.
Yeah. Not saying that's the name of the Oliver Queen ship in Arrow, in Green Arrow. So whenever people keep talking about Queen's Gambit, I was like, is this a Green Arrow film? No, look, I'd rather watch this than Disco. I know that.
You know what? This didn't leave me seething in anger.
No,
the way every episode of Star Trek Discovery does.
Yeah, this just. I mean, there are a couple of bits where you chuckle in this. You know, the drinking scene, the cricket bit's very quaint. Potter. You know, there are a couple of little bits in the first 10 minutes. They're actually good.
I do like the opening, like I said, and I do like when number 6 catches the cricket ball.
Yes, and throws it, and then goes runs after it. But okay, but yeah, it's just like you have number 6 talking in the pub, you have number 6 talking to Potter, and then he basically doesn't speak again.
Right,
just very rarely speaks after that. So all the sort of quaint bits with the music store, with the shoe shine, with the cricket match, all those nice little quaint bits in the first 10 minutes or so stops.
Right.
And then we get into this mundane, almost like a 30-minute chase of boredom. So,
it doesn't build to anything. It's the same. Yeah. It's the same note, kind of like this episode of this show that we're doing right now.
Yeah, we go just doing the same fucking argument over and over for 2 hours. Shane O'Reilly with a €2 super chat. The Doctor's missile. Is that a euphemism? Quite possibly, Shane. And Shane also puts in a €1 phallic hot dog. Gotta get that hot dog in. And then Shane again with a €5 super chat. Hi, gentlemen. How are you, beautiful people?
Fantastic.
I
mean, there's another episode of Disco tomorrow, so why wouldn't I be fantastic? It's a daily reminder that my life is better than some other people's, or a weekly reminder.
I gotta review it again. People just like love the last review.
Your review of Discovery, I watched twice.
Oh wow!
I forgot to mention that. Yes, it was. It just amused me to no end.
You should watch the Batwoman breakdown video.
Yeah, I need to see that. I have not. I have not watched that.
I just put a montage of. I think I get to episode 14 of Batwoman. I'm holding up my thumbnails are the whiteboards at the time, and normally it's just like Batwoman episode, season 1 episode to review, and then one for episode 14 is like Batwoman, and then it's just scroll. I just literally scroll. It's just like all fun and no play makes Jack a dull boy, and it's just a montage. I just put this montage of me just breaking down during the actual review. The review's like 45 minutes long, and every 2 minutes I'm just breaking down, laughing at how daft it is. That it's just a montage of me just losing the plot.
Well, I think though that like every series, even my beloved Star Trek, the original series, has one of the worst. The episode "And the Children Shall Lead," which I think with Gorgon the Friendly Angel, hail, hail, fire and snow, call the angel, we will go.
Yeah,
I mean, you look at it, it's a 3rd season episode, and it's so terrible. And even the Star Trek, which was one of my favorite things in all the world, when you see an episode like that, and the actors are trying to give it their all. They're not. It's not like the actors are. They think that I'm slumming in this episode, so I'm not going to try. It's not like McGowan's sleepwalking through this episode. He's trying, like when he's hanging from the gun and the spikes are coming up. He's trying. But it's interesting to me. Like, I only think about episodes like this from a production standpoint, like when they're sitting around having a production meeting, like what's called a page turn, where all the department heads are sitting around a table, and you're going through each page of the script, deciding, okay, what does the prop department need, camera department, like all the department heads are discussing the episodes. I only imagine what the department heads are thinking, because I'm sure when they were making this episode, they're thinking, wow, what a lark, this will be so much fun to do. We get to blow stuff up, and we get to go to an amusement park, and we have an exploding cricket ball, and all of this, and they probably thought what they were doing was this is gonna be great. But
yeah, sometimes things sound a lot better in theory than in practice.
Yeah. But Plato's Stepchildren is, I would say that Plato's Stepchildren is one of the worst episodes of TV like ever. This episode isn't even that bad. This is as bad as Plato's Stepchildren's at the bottom of the barrel for me. But at least this episode, while it doesn't work, I still find it kind of fun to watch. I mean, it gets bored, but you get bored of it. But I do find lots of things in this episode slightly amusing. So
see, the thing with the prisoner being 17 episodes long is it's actually very rare to get a show that I think smashes it like the prisoner does.
Right.
In terms of quality. You look at like shows that you go, oh, this show's amazing, you need to watch this show. And I watched the show, and you realize that the vast majority of the series is filler. It's just filler. And these shows will benefit, maybe they have a great couple of first episodes and a great couple of last episodes, but you normally find there's a wad, like 6, 7, 8 episodes in the middle where you're just treading water, not really doing anything. And even with Next Generation, Loxana Troy comes along, and I'm like, sometimes things just don't work. The Prisoner is just so consistently original in its individual episodes, and so good within those individual episodes. An episode like this comes along, and that's why it really stands out, because the quality has been so high and so good that you get this sort of nothingness, vacuous episode, and it stands out because, which I think is more of a testament to the rest of the series than a detriment, because of this episode not hitting the mark. Because then you think, well, I've still got 15, 16 absolute belters to Fallout. I don't know. And stuff to try and untangle. But even Fallout's got great elements to it.
Yes,
it's virtually undiscussable.
Well, I mean, I mean, I don't know. I think it'll be fun to talk about it because there are, the whole thing is, what does it mean to you? Fallout's like a litmus test, or, and what do you think it all means? I think ultimately it's a cheat. I think that the only problem, what's interesting is I felt like I loved Game of Thrones. And I think it's one of the most amazing achievements in television. But the last 3 episodes of the 8th season torpedoed the entire series for me.
Season 8.
Because, but no, because I still, even though there's logic gaps, I still enjoyed what was going on. But there are questions that are posed from the very beginning of Game of Thrones, and same with this series, that have questions, who is number 2, who is number 1?
Yeah.
You're number 2, but who is number 1, and why really am I here, and how so you've resigned for what reason? And I feel that The Prisoner never really satisfactorily answers those questions.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes a weakness for the entire series. And like for Game of Thrones, for instance, what was really disheartening after they ran out of George R.R. Martin's source material, I mean, I would, from the very first episode, one of the questions I think in Game of Thrones is, why are the White Walkers doing what they're doing, and what is it they want? Because clearly there's an intelligence, there's agency behind what they're doing. And the Night King, they has strategy. Let's shoot down a dragon so we can make one of the dragon part of our undead army. Let's destroy the wall. Let's do all of these things. And I kept waiting for an answer. What is the answer going to be? What is it that they want? What is their strategy? And some people have not found it. Like when you finally get to the end of that storyline, it's just over. And all of the questions that have been posed, like the episode Hardhome, where Jon Snow confronts Beyond the Wall, confronts the Night King, that there are questions that they are promising to answer, that they have a story. There's a reason why they were marching south. Nope. They just fight this final battle, and none of that. So from the very first episode of Game of Thrones, when you learn about the White Walkers and the Night King, and I think, to me, that is an epic failure of storytelling. And I think, again, setting up a final battle or a final confrontation between Cersei and the Breaker of Chains, and nope.
But I think the concept of number 1 is very clever. I just think it was the execution of how Meyer tried to show it didn't work.
I agree with you 100% that it is very clever, the idea of number 1, and if everybody is their own number 1, and that we're all prisoners, and all of that, like this whole thing. I mean, the village is there to service Patrick McGowan, who is, in fact, he's the number 1 reason the village is there, and what they're doing, and all of that, I think is very valid. But I just wish that the series would deal with that in a more direct fashion. And it's not because I'm not a thinking person.
Yeah.
But a story needs to, in order to be a great story, you have to have a conclusion that leaves you with some kind of satisfaction as opposed to bewilderment.
Mr. Burnett, I've had an idea. I've discovered a new recipe. I have a cracking idea for a show that we can do after this.
Ooh.
I think we should do The Modern Day Prisoner and go into exactly why that is wrong.
Oh, I'm all about that. Yeah, well, you know what would be great about that is we can discuss also why remakes sometimes don't work, and how it's not always, when things, to me, are rebooted, stories are so much a part of their time. It's part of what's in the zeitgeist. And nowadays, with everybody so risk averse, Hollywood, let's reboot the Scorpion King. Everybody wants to reboot something because they feel that there's a little bit more security, because when you're spending tens of millions of dollars, nobody can afford to be wrong. And if you're wrong, it's a career ender, which is why everybody in Hollywood is always looking for IPs or things that already have proven track records in other mediums that they can come back and repurpose again. But so many of these things, when they go back and reboot them, they fail. They don't work, because the concerns of the day that led to the creation of the shows in the first place, our civilization isn't in that place anymore. And I think it'd be fascinating to go and look at the Prisoner remake. And it's funny, you've got people like Jim Caviezel, who played Jesus and Passion of the Christ. You have Ian McKellen, who's a fantastic actor. It's not like they didn't assemble some talent that could have done what they were missing, though, was, I think, the intellect. And I think the same is true of I hate to say it, but Picard and Discovery. For me, they so don't work well, because the people writing the shows, I mean, it's not like they're not smart, but it's almost like they don't have the intellectual background to attack these stories with the kind of rigor that they need to be approached with. And
they're attacking these stories from a very specific standpoint.
Right. Or they have an agenda. They like, I don't think anyone ever sat down and said, okay,
they want to answer their own question. Whereas Star Trek, with the writing before, didn't. It wanted to pose the question and allow you to figure out the answer.
Absolutely. It asked you, instead of it asked you to think about something, it didn't tell you what to think, like you just said. And I think that's a huge difference. And nowadays, I mean, these people are writing to when you're writing to your agenda, and you're telling these sort of ham-fisted stories where you're wearing your virtue signaling on your sleeve, you're not allowing an audience into the story. You're just browbeating them with your own. I mean, the great thing about a story is a story brings you in and engages your mind and provides or gives you this smorgasbord of ideas with which to gorge yourself with. And then once you've been given all of this intellectual fruit, it's up to you to figure out, what does it mean to you? How does it work? And obviously, I'm not saying the writers and the producers and the directors shouldn't have a story to tell, but when you're attacking an issue, like the great thing about Star Trek is people make fun of it. They're ham-fisted episodes, like Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, with the Loki and Beale, Loki and Beale, who are black on one side and white on the other, and Beale's black on the other side and white on the other. Everyone's like, well, that's such a ham-fisted racial allegory. Well, it is, but the episode's not totally horrible. But nowadays, Star Trek is all ham-fisted. It's all so in your face, and it's so not subtle, and it's so also not really great science fiction.
But where I think that episode did work on TOS, on TOS, was the fact that it was meant to be blatant,
right?
Because it was meant to show you how stupid it was. But one guy's got black on one side and white on the other, and the other guy's got black on that side and white. That's just stupid. Exactly.
Well, yeah, and it is
exactly. It's stupid that we fucking. People are complaining about the pigmentation of skin.
Well,
it's ludicrous.
And that's something I've always thought was what's great about Let That Be Your Last Battlefield is how our principal cast, they're all grappling with this. Wait, what? They're trying to figure out, what's the problem with you guys? Like, we don't see it. Like, I mean, I get it, I understand, but and that's what I do like about the episode, is how the principal cast reacts to Loki and Beale. I mean, Loki and Beale. I think that's I think it's great. And
TNG had plenty of like societals and high society, low society stories. And I think they work well. I think they're great little moral stories are great little stories.
Oh, and there's an episode in TNG, I think it's called Man of
Tales, isn't it?
Yeah, there's an episode of TNG, I think it's called Man of the People, where there's like a negotiator he's feeding off of Deanna Troi in
Mm.
order to negotiate this. And there's this great conversation he has with Picard when Picard figures out what he's doing and how monstrous it is. And this guy's like, look, so one person is sacrificed while I save the lives of two civilizations. And you're just watching this going, it's absolutely monstrous what's happening. And it's what's happening and it's one of our principal characters. And Picard is like, he can't believe it, and you as the audience can't believe it either. And it doesn't really tell you what to think, but we as empathetic beings know how monstrous it is. One of my favorite episodes of Next Generation that no one ever talks about is a 3rd season episode called The Survivors, where the Enterprise rolls up on a planet and they find one little patch of land, and they
so good.
And they find the Uxbridges, and at the end, and there's this great moment where you find out John Anderson is a Dowd, and he says, you don't, the aliens that attacked me and killed my wife, I've recreated her, that did all of this, the Husnock is the name of the race, the Husnock, and he says, John Anderson's explaining what he did because he's like this omnipotent being, like a Q.
Yeah.
And he goes, you don't understand the scope of my crime.
Picard's like, because he kind of leaves it vague though, because he says I killed them.
Yeah, he says.
So Picard's thinking you blew up the ship, you blew up the fleet, and then he sort of has to do the elaboration. Yeah,
he says I destroyed all the Husnock everywhere. Like he one creature committed total genocide.
Yeah,
and the way Patrick Stewart plays it, he says we're unfit to judge you. I can't even understand the scope of your crime.
Yeah, we have no system to judge. We have no system to judge somebody like.
I mean, this is like this atrocity goes beyond of all the atrocities we've seen. I don't even know and it leaves this episode. That's the episode where Worf says, "Nice house, good tea," and it starts out one way, and then by the end of the episode, it's such this amazing gut punch, and it's always been one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek because it allows, like Picard, we're Picard, and when you're following this episode and you come along to the end and you're like, my God, the episode doesn't tell you what to think; it provides you the answer. And you, as an empathetic audience member, have to be like, "Holy shit!"
Well, I mean, maybe I'm getting a bit dark here, but I think it poses 2 very interesting points. Number 1, the genocidal response from the Dowd, and number 2, the fact that Husnock obliterated a planet and had no mercy,
right?
No compassion, no care at all for the life that was there. So the morality is, did what the Dowd dude correct and wiped out a species who would go round and without mercy obliterate planets? Or from a moral standpoint, that, even they don't deserve. It's kind of like to me, it was almost an issue about death penalty.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, and that's why Star Trek is great, because absolutely it's about capital punishment.
Yeah,
or corporal punishment on a galactic scale.
Yes,
except instead of one person committing murder or something, it's a race.
Yes,
the Husnock are this murderous, non-empathetic alien race that will snuff out life everywhere. And I think you're absolutely right, and that's why Star Trek episodes remain compelling. But at the end of the day, it doesn't tell you
Mikey Burnham to tell them everything.
Oh man, and that's the thing. It's like everybody, modern Star Trek, everybody talks like they're in a Star Trek episode. It's like, let's have a rousing speech about who and what we really are. And it's so funny because all of that that should be self-evident. You don't have to hear it every episode.
No, but the speeches aren't even rousing. The garbage.
Yeah,
the garbage focused to garbage people. And then they go, it's emotional. No, it's not emotional. Just because your characters cry in every scene, in every sentence that said, it doesn't make it emotional. There is no emotion. God, I'm oh fuck it. I'm gonna admit this.
Well, we're gonna find out like this yeah, they're not thought through.
No, because I watched a video the other day, and there was somebody who was doing their playthrough of Final Fantasy 15. I have only ever been able to play Final Fantasy 15 once. And the reason why I've only been able to play it once is because I thought it was shit.
But then you clicked on a video to watch a playthrough.
Like an edit. Whoa, hold on. Is it because I thought it was shit? Is it because I thought, I never want to go back? No. The reason why I haven't been able to pick up and play this game again is because it broke my heart. It was the story and the relationship building between the boys, this very kind of fraternal bonding that they had was so good that at the end I cried like a baby, and so I was just so emotionally taken by the sacrifice that had to be made and all this sort of stuff after the relationship building. And it made me think about because I have no father. I had a 6-year relationship with my father. Horrible man. The only 6 years of abuse. Awful. So it makes you think, and then you see like fraternal and paternal relationships. So it makes me think of that. I have a brother who did wonderful things for me growing up. An older brother who looking back did amazing things for me. And so you have that aspect of it. So that embellished in the story made it so emotional. I watched this person's playthrough the other day, and it's like 45-minute edit of literally from start to finish. At the end of it, I'm fucking bawling like a baby again. That's emotion.
Right.
That's non-forced emotion. That's emotion because of where the story or the character or the journey's taken you to. Stood there in an episode of Disco saying, I haven't seen you yet. I just like my family, means fuck all. Because I don't care about you. I don't care about your family of people. They're not family. They're Starfleet officers.
Even though they don't act like officers in any kind of quasi-military situation I've ever seen.
Children, because really they're school children from high school. But there's no proper command structure. There's no anything there to say that this is a starship. This is a Starfleet starship. There is a legitimate chain of command. There's a what's the word I'm looking for? There is a protocol. There is a protocol on how you deal with matters. But no, Mikey Burnham doesn't like something. Mikey Burnham goes and does it herself. You don't be fucking off and go, fuck this with Picard. And you had that great episode where Data takes over captaincy of the Enterprise for a wee bit, and he's given out his orders, and Worf's is number one. And Worf's been very kind of like aggressive about how he wants. We need to go with this, and Data says, no, let's stay here, scan the area, let's see what information we can do. And then when Data finally says, okay, let's go and Worf goes, finally. And then Data just says, can I have a word with you? Am I ready?
Oh, it's this is such a great scene, dude.
Yeah, and they just go into his ready room, and he's just like, Mr. Worf, I am very displeased at your performance as first officer. And then Worf's kind of like, why? And he's like, the way that you speak to me and question me in front of the crew. And he's like, well, Captain Picard's got no problems with me giving up my ideas and And he's like, yes, we encourage that. But once a decision has been made, then it's your duty as first officer to carry out my orders, not to question them in front of the crew. And then Worf realizes his role. He realizes the difference between when you're going into the discussion phase and then when you're getting into the execution phase. So once a decision's been made, if you like it or dislike it, it's tough. As first officer, you execute that order on behalf of your captain. And then they have that wonderful little bit, and I'm sorry if it's going to ruin our friendship. And Worf's like, no, this is my fault. I am sorry if I have ruined our friendship, and I would love to continue to be your first officer. And it's great.
And I love that. I'm getting goosebumps even thinking about that scene, because that is a very mature exchange.
Yes.
And
No tears, no shouting.
no. And at the end, I mean, to me, that shows an adult maturity than anything that we've seen in now, well, including Picard, four seasons of modern Star Trek, which is to me, it's honestly, both Picard and Discovery are the worst written science fiction shows that's ever been put on television. And I'm talking the Fantastic Journey and Automan and Manimal and whatever. Whatever you want to, at least those shows followed more of a pattern. I mean, it's amazing to me. You have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of Star Trek, and the kind of dumbed down emotionally this drivel that we get, this unbelievable, horrible drivel. I love how these discussions always come back to Star Trek.
Especially when you're dealing with an episode like this one.
But you know what, though? If you think about it, I mean, I find it interesting that we have The Prisoner, Star Trek, Doctor Who. These were all shows that were born out of the 60s. Doctor Who's obviously a little older than Star Trek and The Prisoner. Now, they've all been remade. And while you could say Doctor Who wasn't really remade, it's in continuity. But I would say when they rebooted Doctor Who in 2005 with Eccleston as the Doctor, they were reinventing Doctor Who for the modern age. And during the Russell Davies era, I thought Doctor Who was really good. I really liked. Yeah, I mean, look, even Torchwood, Children of Earth, the 5 episodes of Children of Earth, I think are 5 of the finest hours of science fiction television ever.
Yeah. It's incredible.
And when you see, like, we've watched Star Trek being rebooted over and over again, and I find Discovery to be, and Discovery's always been a mess because you lost your visionary showrunner in Brian Fuller, and then you've just changed over, and it's being written by people that aren't, like, they're from these relationship drama shows. Even if they're genre shows like a vampire show, it's still all this interpersonal drama, and it's missing real science fiction, and it's missing, like, even episodes of The Prisoner have these great science fiction tropes, whether it's mind control or whether it's, what does that mean? And I feel like the science fiction tropes, now they'll just do anything. Star Trek has now become about magic. All these writers have written on vampire shows or supernatural shows, so nothing that goes on in Star Trek anymore, it's all just an extension of that.
They just gave us a device that you think about anything and it makes it fuck out of here.
Yeah, we're traveling through the mushroom magic network. We're going to go on the magic carpet ride of the micellular network, which we can go anywhere in the universe instantaneously. And I mean, if that's the case, before you stop off at Trill, for instance, and you're looking for the Federation, why don't you go to the 5 Federation founding members first? I mean, and the thing that I find as a viewer, as an astute viewer, I put myself in the what if position. If I'm a character like number 6, and I'm in the position of being interned in the village for some reason, when I'm watching number 6, I'm constantly asking myself, would I do what number 6 is doing? And for the most part, I would. I would go in and confront number 2 if somebody whisked me away to some outdoor prison. I would defy him at every step of the way, and keep my individuality. But when I watched modern Star Trek, for instance, no one acts like any rational being would act in the situation. So if we have a ship that can literally go anywhere in the universe, and you're looking for the Federation, if you go back to Earth and there's no Federation, your next move should be to go. I mean, you don't go and deal with somebody you just picked up on Earth. We're going to go find this admiral who might know. No, let's go to Vulcan. Let's go to Vulcan.
No, Robert, no, because she's amazing.
No,
she's amazing.
She sabotaged your ship.
And she's gender neutral or non-binary or some fucking, flavor of the month word. So let's just do everything she wants to do. These.
And then by the way, they ruined the Trill. They ruined the Trill would have the idea that the Trill, who are confronted with this. They know everything about trills. They've had 900 and plus more years of being trills. Do you think they not know every single permutation of what could have happened with trill symbiotes in the universe, and the way they act? They try, let's do a commentary about racism and rejection. This is an abomination. We have to get what? No,
I saw about inclusion and what? It's just all bollocks. It's all bollocks.
So bad. It's so bad. It doesn't even make any sense.
Let's read a couple more super chats because if I have to speak any more disco, I'm gonna fucking lose it. Mr. Tickle Trunk with a 5 Canadian. Maybe it was a story about why he left the service. He was fucking bored with it. Yeah, maybe he's just like, yes, I'm so bored with this job that I just quit. I was doing silly things. Man of War 665, Neighbor of the Beast, with a $10 super chat. McGowan's facial hair worth the price of admission alone. Which he got rid of halfway through because it was probably falling off his face, which it looked like it was. Rob Altis with the $5 super chat. Love this prisoner discussion, particularly because I'm watching it as you go. There you go. And Mr. Tickle Trunk again with 5 Canadian. Hour 1, The Prisoner. Hour 2, what we've lost in modern sci-fi that's the best sci-fi shows of the past. You're still on topic, in my opinion. I love this stuff. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Yeah, I mean, going back to the Data Wharf, that was how a organization deals with matters. That's how a proper chain of command deals with issues. You take it away from the crew, you take it into private, and you have a mature discussion about it. And yeah, the current stuff which we have, it's all tears and tears. And just imagine if Picard was in fucking tears all the time and hugging his crew all the time. You're like, what is this? This guy's a weirdo. A freaking weirdo. This whole crew's a bunch of weirdos. And they go, oh, it's Star Trek Discovery. Yes, it is a crew, a bunch of weirdos. But I think even today, particularly with the themes that we've discussed with The Prisoner, I think there is definitely scope for a modern prisoner. Not a Magoon, not a John Drake, but I think there's a good idea to be explored with someone else being taken to a village and having similar modern day themes, hopefully written by open-minded people from different social and political areas that can tell a balanced story to allow people to have fun. And get involved, but I just don't see it happening.
Right.
Because I think it's so skewed one way right now. From a far left ideological perspective, that you can't get thought-provoking stories anymore. You get lectures. You get told. You don't get posed questions. You get given what you're told what to think. It is dystopian. Whereas these shows warn us consistently about dystopian futures and losing the ability to discuss and losing the diversity of thoughts and what it leads to. The Borg, hello. Did any of you watch Star Trek? No? Okay. We won't be able to have these shows anymore. We have, I mean, The Expanse. I watched 2.5 series of The Expanse. I just kind of lost it a little bit. I couldn't get going. After the Thomas Jane stuff kind of finished, I was like, oh.
Oh, I know. I really like The Expanse because it I think it's really interesting. It might not be as pulpy and satisfying, but I do think it's a pretty great show. But in terms of The Prisoner, I think The Prisoner now you could remake this show and you could make it just as relevant, but you need people that are damn smart and are people that could grapple with these kinds of issues, because the idea of the individual, especially now, like even here in America, what cancel culture is all about, it is ideological fascism. And we are in the middle of a time where the left, what I find really interesting is I used to think that my side of the aisle was, and we've talked about this, were the people that believed in free speech.
Yes.
That's no longer true. I hear kids, college campuses, the people that want safe spaces, they can't cope with ideas that are anathema to what they believe. They can't hang with that. And if they hear something that they disagree with, or that like, oh my God, they feel that ideas are actually violence. And to me,
violence.
Yeah, to me, when we're these are people that haven't gone through. It's like we were talking about that video game. People don't understand like what the world was like 500 years ago.
No,
that for instance, rape was part of warfare.
Yeah,
You sacked the town, you raped all the women and some of the men. Absolutely,
that's what would be happening.
That's what you did. And the idea that nowadays that you can't have that, there are people that will reject you or make sure you're canceled because you've posited an idea that you disagree with. I mean, this kind of in a way, you could flip the script, and you could say like what if Patrick McGowan, what if the new prisoner was somebody that had literally been canceled? Like I was canceled for my ideas, and make instead of a secret agent, maybe he was a beloved college professor.
Yeah,
that had been teaching for 20 years, and one day, like Brett Weinstein, he was an evolutionary biologist, and he came up and he said, well, human beings are binary. We are. I mean, mentally, well, yeah, mentally people can feel differently, and there's actually scientific and there's research that shows that people who feel a certain way are true, but that doesn't necessarily change the fact that human beings are binary. In our minds, we might not be, but the biology of our physiques, I mean, and so he gets hauled away. He winds up in some Kafkaesque nightmare where he's thrown in some weird, strange re-education camp, and they want him to recant his beliefs as an evolutionary biologist. He's a scientist, and they're like, but science, no, it doesn't matter what science says. You're a man, you can menstruate. And what if you did a prisoner episode or a show about that, about ideological fascism, and that all of the things that we used to know and we used to take for granted as fact are now being stripped away from us. And now we're going to live in a world where everybody wants listen, if I feel this way, that means it's true. And what happens when you're the
truth?
My truth. Well, what happens when you live in a world like that? There's a way to update the prisoner. And I mean, whether that's a Black Mirror episode, like their Star Trek riff, I think you could do a really interesting prisoner episode like that. And instead of a secret agent, because now with asymmetric warfare and all that, no one's really who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. But I'll tell you something, I think now it's the people that are seeking intellectual truth, scientific truth. They're the people that are now the enemies. And I never thought I was ever going to live in a world like that. I thought everyone's carrying around supercomputers and that they spew all this bullshit on. You'd think, where did you get that from? Well, you got it from people that know what science is. And they don't sit there and go, yeah, well, it's not my truth. If we were waiting for your truth to actually be real, I wouldn't have my iPhone. I wouldn't have this technology I'm talking to you on right now. And there's how you do a modern updating of the prisoner. Maybe.
Boom.
I mean, I think it would be, or maybe not do it as the prisoner, do it as a new show.
Yeah, just do a new sci-fi show. Yeah.
How does our civilization progress if every idiot has their own truth? How does our civilization progress when in our academia, a place where you go to college to be challenged, you go to college to have everything you believe shaken to its core and rebuilt? That's what intellectual inquiry is all about. But now people don't want that. Oh my God, there's a class speaker coming that I just don't like that person. I can't abide listening to their ideas. Well, how do you know that if you haven't heard their ideas?
Either don't go or go and listen and hear. And if you don't like the ideas, that's fine. You've opened your mind to listen.
Yeah.
At least. And you can say, well, I heard them. I disagree with them. I disagree with them on these grounds. Have an argument, have a perspective, have a point of view.
It'll also help you understand your own beliefs more, because you'll think about what you believe, and you'll have to do the rigorous intellectual work to be able to understand or explain how come you reject that other person's ideas and put forth your own. Yeah,
but that's it. You gotta you have got to have an argument. Not receive the argument. You have got to have an argument as to why not. A lot of closed minds nowadays, and that's the tragedy of it. That is the tragedy of it, because no, I won't go into that. I won't go there. But let's just go on.
Well, no, but I think that's really, really important. And I think like there's a lot of, like, I've always believed there's things that I believe that we will eventually, like, I always get in these conversations with people about art, whether art is objective or subjective. And John Campy and I go back and forth. And I say that there is things in art, whether it's literature, whether it's paintings, whether it's movies or whatever, there is an objectivity to art that is great. That's why you can have a list, the AFI 100 greatest movies. Now, we don't necessarily have the tools yet to quantify why certain art is great and why does certain art stir the human spirit the way that it does. We don't quite know that. We don't have a way to measure that or come up. And I think the same is true of, like, when you do talk about LGBTQ or trans people, I think that there are scientific explanations to explain that it is naturally occurring. We haven't yet developed the tools, like whether you, and I do think that to a certain extent, there are people that have, when in the womb, you're exposed to more testosterone or more estrogen or whatever that cause you to develop differently, not any worse or any better, but just differently. And these things are naturally occurring. We don't yet have the material or the ability to measure those things, but we will, eventually. And we will be able to prove, just like that's why I believe in the 24th century, if you were trans, you would just, if you wanted to transition, you would. We'd have the surgical technology to do it. So
it would be done at, well, no, so go on.
Well, no. So I think these things are real, and we need to discriminate against people's ridiculous, because ultimately we're going to prove all of these things. However, that doesn't change the fact that, like, human beings are a certain way. We have sexual reproduction. If we didn't have male and female, we wouldn't be here anymore. Now,
well, that's why a statement. I don't know if you saw the video I did on the statement that the guy from Lower Decks did, where he said that everyone in Starfleet is essentially borderline bisexual. And that's well, number one, that is exceedingly bigoted, and number two, that is crazy, because you would you'd be wiped out within a few generations. Because bisexual doesn't mean I'm going to fuck both species, both genders. It means you're attracted to both. So what if you're attracted, you're attracted to both, but you decide that you go with the same sex relationship, and you don't have kids, and you don't, and all this kind of stuff. You are diluting your fucking species.
Well, but
generation over generation.
Not only that, I would say, then what happens when Amanda Grayson falls in love with Sarek, a Vulcan, who is not a human being? He's a different species. Now, if you're let's forget the fact that Sarek is.
I mean, I'm talking our own.
Of course.
I'm just taking the human race, and such a stupid statement, such a flippant statement that is only been made to appease fucking weirdos in their echo chambers who are just like all about the inclusive. Oh yeah, No, it's the stupidest thing that you could say.
But I would not only that, I would say that when it comes to human sexuality in general, in 300 or 400 years, I mean, to quote Aliens, doesn't matter when it's Octurian, baby. You know, when we start meeting alien species that are humanoid,
Yeah.
and you're going to be attracted to other species. Now we're talking so you can't even call it bisexual anymore. You're now going to be able to have yes, and so to say that everybody in the Star Trek universe is bisexual is a fundamental there's a fundamental lack of understanding of what would happen to the human race once we start meeting all different species of aliens. Because then I bet people are going to be like, well, what happens when Riker in The Outcast falls in love with the genderless Soren? There, you know, I mean, what does that mean? But we want to hang labels on everything. The fact is, if we move forward, our problem is, because the mechanics are the same, biological reproduction and sexuality are tied together. They're tied together. But really, our sexuality, aside from the fact that we utilize the same mechanics, our sexuality eventually, especially in the Star Trek future, is going to be removed almost entirely from biological reproduction, the idea of it. Because if you want to get sexual with, I don't know, like from the animated series, Lieutenant Maress, the Cation, the hot cat lady who sits at Uhura's desk. I mean, if I could find a humanoid cat chick, man, I'd be totally attracted to her. Now, if I'm going to get down with Lieutenant Maress and she's a Cation, what does that make me? I'm now attracted to somebody that's not even a human being. So how are you going to call my sexuality bisexual? What are you going to call it? Trisexual? It's not even.
You're a Californian fucking idiot.
Right. I'm living in the coastal elite bubble. But let me tell you, if I could get down with a hot cat lady like Maress from the animated series, or if I could get down with somebody who's got like 4 arms, or, you know, maybe I'll find some giant crystalline jellyfish creature that really gets me off. What does that say about me? I mean, this idea, if you're working in science fiction and you haven't read Ursula Le Guin's The Left Hand of Darkness, which deals with gender and all that, you're thinking, and this is what bothers me about modern Star Trek, is so limited by today. And the fact is, you've got to start thinking about, what does it mean to live in a galaxy full of a bunch of different humanoids where we've seen all kinds of interspecies couplings. And if you see that, I mean, then it becomes like, well, you know, Amanda's still with a male, you know, it's still.
We have an interspecies coupling in TNG because we have Riker and a half Beta Z, Deanna Troi.
How about Dax and Worf?
Dax and Worf.
What about that? I mean, how do you put that in your pipe and smoke it? Or on Voyager,
half human.
You've got Roxanne Dawson's character, you know, and Robert Duncan McNeil.
So it's full Betazoid with human. Yeah.
And you're looking at that. So this idea, well, everybody in the future is bisexual. No. Everyone in the future would probably be, I guess the right word would be pansexual, if anything, or omnisexual, or really.
I ain't fucking robot. Although then you used to look at data and fucking.
Yeah, you know what people would be like in the future? They would be just sexual. They would just be sexual. You wouldn't say they're bisexual. And that's my problem, is that Star Trek now it's hopelessly mired in 21st century thinking of today. And the people that are writing it have no extrapolation. They're not like going, okay, if things are like this in the present, what would they be like in the future, when we now live in a star system, we're part of a federation where people are getting it on with hundreds of different kinds of alien species? What do you think about that, and how would that affect sexuality? And the way they write Star Trek now is it's just hopelessly mired in the politics of today, and that's what's so disappointing about it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so unimaginative. It's so unimaginative.
Yes, because their thought is so limited, and so their imagination can only be limited.
Because they also don't imagine getting it on with a hot Cation like Maress from the animated series. I certainly can.
Look, I'd be up for an Andorian. I'd try.
Oh, come on. Andorians? Are you kidding? Absolutely.
Definitely an Orion slave girl.
I wonder if with Andorians
obviously Vulcans.
Do you think the curtains match the drapes on an Andorian?
Oh, hell yeah.
Because that white hair, man, that drives me crazy. Love it. I love it.
Or the green with the Orion. Well, their hairs can change color though, so
you know what?
But you look at great sci-fi like Mass Effect, and it's the same thing. You have because your character has the choice to do so many different things in that game. You can involve yourself in persistent and constant interspecies relationships, sexual relationships, not just hetero, but gay relationships as well. So every time somebody who deals with science fiction and understands races coming together, they understand the concept that probably one of the very first things that would happen. Put it this way, you put a bunch of, let's say, Andorians, not so much Vulcans because they'll be uptight. You put a bunch of Andorians in a room for the first time, 10 Andorians with 10 humans, 5 male, 5 female, etc., on either side with a bunch of fucking liquor, having a party. I guarantee you that there's going to be at least 2 or 3 couples.
Oh, I mean,
that first night going, what have you got? I'll show you mine if you show me yours.
100%. And you know what's really interesting? I mean, imagine when you're dealing with an alien civilization that didn't have the same, say, modesty or religious beliefs or whatever. I mean, that they just had. I mean, if you think about it, there's an episode of Star Trek called By Any Other Name, where the Andromedans have taken human form, Rojan and Kalinda and all that, and they're supposed to be like tentacled creatures that have taken on human form. And Kalinda's like, I don't understand what it is with you humans and this simple biological coupling. Why are you so obsessed with it? Kirk's like, let me show you. And even though he knows she's some tentacled, I mean, it wouldn't matter anymore. And what bothers me about modern Star Trek is we now have the ability to tell these kinds of stories, to leap beyond what we've seen before, and to really get into the nitty-gritty of what science fiction literature has been addressing for decades.
But 7 of 9's gay now.
Yeah, and that to me is that's so limiting. I mean, it's so, let's turn her into what we want today. Like, why would 7 of 9, if she's been part of the Borg collective that is made up of species from all over the galaxy, she's been locked in to, I mean, maybe they didn't deal with when they went into Unimatrix Zero, it's not like it's all fucking people who are either one species. It's all different kinds of species. You would apparently learn about all different kinds of mating rituals and sexuality and all kinds of craziness. But no, they always have to bring it back to today. Let's make everybody of today, whether
limited thought,
limited imagination, AI that's back to 1970. AI, it's all evil like Skynet. Cthulhu AI out in that next galaxy doesn't like synths. They don't even know what a synth is. They think that an anthropomorphized humanoid robot is like a synth. It's a machine.
What if it was like R2-D2?
Yeah, what does that mean? I mean, does it have to look? The ideas that they come up with in modern Star Trek are so bad. They're so unimaginative and so lame and so mired in science fiction of 30 or 40 or 50 years ago. It's just, I hate it so much.
We've got a couple more super chats here. Mark C with a $5 super chat. Mikey Spock has given me courage. I'm now non-binary. My pronouns are 2001101001011 and 20011010010112. Because I put the 2s in there, it's legitimate.
I, me, and mine. Those are my pronouns.
I'm going fucking yourself. Sci-fi freak with $5 super chat. What about Dr. Crusher? She got impregnated by an energy thing. Troy. Sorry about the spelling. Troy got impregnated. She got space. Why is Troy always getting space raped?
I know.
Just constantly getting. But no, yeah, an energy being went into Troy and impregnated her, and she had a baby, and then the baby grew up very quickly, and the baby was just like, "Gotta go. I just wanted to experience your life cycle sort of business. See ya."
Right. Yeah.
Had no concept of permission or anything like that. It was just I'm an alien. I've never come in contact with humans before. I want to experience their life cycles, see through their eyes for a little bit.
And what's so funny now, somebody would say that, oh my God, that's so rapey and all that. But, when you're meeting an alien civilization, an entity that has no concept of us, that doesn't make that alien's race or that alien creature bad.
Yes.
It's exploring the galaxy the way it explores the galaxy, the same way that we are. It's just it doesn't have to use ships.
And before anyone says, oh, does that mean that you are vindicating rape? No, because humans have those rules in place.
Yes.
We're discussing an alien who doesn't understand these rules or concepts or thoughts per se that we know, because they didn't seem to be malicious in any way or form. It all seemed to be very, it just seemed to be very just curiosity. It was just curiosity, just like humans are curious when they're in space and zipping around trying to.
And that's the best kind of science fiction story, when you have to grapple with the fact that, wait a minute, I understand it's really hard for us to put our morality away and for us to put our principles away. But in the case of this particular story, what it is positing is, how do we deal with an intelligent alien that's very alien from us?
What they might be referring to is the Series 7 episode with the Scottish energy rapist.
Right. Oh, well, yeah. Well, I mean, but that guy he's that guy's a complete. Yeah, he is he's the worst kind of toxic masculinity. I would say the episode's called.
I don't believe in toxic masculinity.
No, but Sub Rosa, that guy's a straight up rapist.
But the weird thing is, even at the end, they were talking about how the women had wonderful lives with Captain Orgasm.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Now, but again, that's also a difficult. Like, here's a creature that is tied to them and energy and all that. He's giving them the best something that they've ever had in their lives. So is it a bad thing? And that's the question. That's what's compelling, is to have these issues to discuss. You have to be able to discuss, and that's what's so interesting. That episode, everyone hates that episode. It's not a great episode. Star Trek,
terrible.
But it does have, that is a compelling idea. It's a compelling idea. Like, you can debate that. Just like you can debate the idea.
He murders people in the episode, so he's not a nice person.
Well, no, he's a bad entity. But let's say he didn't murder anyone. Would you? It's like Indecent Proposal.
Well, I mean, the grandma seemed to accept him in, but Beverly was saying no, and from our perspective, then no means no,
right?
And that's where the pursuit stops, and he wasn't stopping the pursuit with Beverly.
Well, he's also a lying, duplicitous fuck. So, I mean, he's not like the alien in The Child, that impregnates Troy.
Yeah.
This guy is bad news. And he's been victimizing women by making them think it's all cool because he provides them such great pleasure. But really what he's doing, he's victimizing them and using them for his own sustenance. He is a rapist in the first.
He's a parasite.
He's a parasite, a raping parasite, and there's no defending him.
No, I didn't like him. His hair was gay. His hair was crazy.
The important thing is, good science fiction presents situations where we should be able to have these. They should lead to interesting discussions where you can come at these things from many different angles and bring what you believe, and hopefully somebody who believes something else, that you should be able to sit in a bar and have a conversation about this episode that'll last 3 hours, and you'll all get something out of it, and you'll feel that kind of discussion and debate which, by the way, that's why they choose a science fiction show in the first place to deal with these issues. So people can always be like, well, this is what happened in Star Trek. So I'm not going to want to kill you by the end of this discussion because we're discussing politics. We're discussing a Star Trek episode, which is why people like Rod Serling and Gene Roddenberry chose to work in the medium of science fiction, fantasy, and horror in order to grapple with these issues so everybody could watch without being triggered and get all screaming and yelling at one another. And that's what the brilliance of it is.
Completely lost.
Oh, no. Discovery is, yeah, absolutely. And Discovery is monumentally intellectually dishonest. It is. I think because they have told you what to think. They haven't given you something to think about. No. They have told you what to think.
Yeah, we're telling you. You're being educated. We're educating you. Fuck out of here. Right. Robert, we are 2 hours 15 in. We have got to draw this to a conclusion. Next week, we have Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling. Do not forsake me, oh my darling.
I guess on my channel, the last two-part shattering. Can you believe that this was the 14th episode that we've done? We've done 14 of these shows.
We would be doing Fallout next week.
I know. But it's crazy. You know what? I want to thank you for suggesting this and that we've stuck to it.
Yeah, I think it's been fascinating. I think people have... we've got a little crew of people which should just come back every week. So it's been wonderful to see.
Yeah.
We want to continue doing stuff. So
yeah, no, I think it's great. And I've really enjoyed this collaboration we've been doing. I mean, we're still doing it, yes, but I think this is what makes YouTube, I think, special. Like you and I want to come to England and sit down and get rip-roaring drunk with you.
That sounds amazing.
And play with our hot toys. And when I say that, I do not mean that euphemistically. I mean that entirely. Literally. Let's have an unboxing there.
Do it, baby.
Yeah.
Do it, baby. Yeah. That sounds like awesome fun whenever Koof dies.
Yeah.
And life turns to some sort of normality. Right, so we'll draw to conclusion next week. Your homework, folks. Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling, where number 6 is again non-existent in this episode, pretty much. Beginning and end. But he's out and about. So how can he be out and about if he's not in the episode? Tune in, watch the episode, do your homework, find out.
Yes.
And we also get some revelations about his life as well, which is quite interesting, I think, going into the finales, which is rather good. Robert, anything you want to plug, sir?
Well, I've still got the first annual Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival going on. Entries are open until December 1st. If you've ever wanted to make a movie, you can make one. And if you come over to my channel, The Burnett Work on YouTube, you can see the current entries. Hopefully we'll have a few more to drop this week. But do that, and you can find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett, or find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, and you can find me every day on my own YouTube show, Robservations, the show about something. Oh, one other thing. I'm dropping a new show that I'm doing with Dieter Bastian, a man I've met through my YouTube channel, and it's called Let's Get Physical Media.
Well,
that's all about collecting physical media, and the first episode drops hopefully tomorrow.
Awesome. Yeah, physical media, but massive, as you can see, massive believer in physical media.
Oh, yeah, that's protect a beautiful set, too. Look at that.
Protect it. Look at that, 6, yeah. Just come in the post today.
Beautiful.
Discussing it tomorrow. I'm going to be watching a lot of Rocky tomorrow.
You'll have fun.
Of Rocky. Yeah. Well, there's some love the first 4. After that, it kind of gets a little bit ropey, but yeah. So big thank you to everyone who's turned out tonight. Massive thank you to my mods, Vanessa, Purple Valkyrie. I've also seen Gabriel in the chat as well. Thank you very much indeed for doing a great job, folks. Everyone who turned up, hit the join button. Many thanks for supporting the channel, and super chatting. Many thanks indeed for supporting the channel. I will see you over on Robert's channel next week, 8 p.m. UK time, Greenwich Mean Time, 12 p.m. Pacific time, adjust your clocks accordingly. And as ever, it kind of lends us to just say, be seeing you, Robert.
It's a salute.
It's definitely a salute. Take care. Bye for now.